Welcome to today's webinar on security implications of Oracle product Desupport. My name is Phil Ryman. I'm the Director of Business Development at Integrigy, and I'll be the moderator for this e-learning session. The speaker today is Steve Coast. Steve is the Chief Technology Officer and founder of Integrigy Corporation. And he's been working with Oracle products since 1994, and for the past 12 years, Steve has focused on the security and auditing aspects of the Oracle E-Business Suite and Oracle Database, and has written and presented on these topics at various national and regional conferences, including OEUG and IOUG and the recent Collaborative conference. Steve is well recognized internationally and for his vast security knowledge and expertise. I'll now turn it over to Steve.
Thanks so much, Phil. The topic today we're going to talk about is when Oracle desupports a product and what's the security implication to your organization. And so this can be somewhat extensive just based on security patches and other things, and we'll go through security patches and also talk about some other topics. So before we get started, for those of you not familiar with Integrigy, Integrigy was founded in 2001, and we specialize in Oracle Database and Oracle E-Business Suite security. We've got two sides to our business. We do have some products that help you secure your Oracle databases and Oracle EBS environments, and we also have a set of services. So a lot of the information today we're presenting is actually from our services that we're working with different organizations doing security assessments, helping them secure both their database environments and EBS environments. So enough about Integrigy, and let's start talking about Oracle Desupport. Before we can talk about Oracle Desupport, we need to first define the word. So I spent some time trying to figure out if it actually has a hyphen in it or not, and I did some searches, including on Oracle MetaLink, and Oracle is very inconsistent about how it's used, either with a hyphen or no hyphen. So throughout the rest of the presentation, I'll actually use the word desupport without a hyphen. So just to get everyone set and using the correct terminology here. And let's next define the word desupport. So desupport is kind of an interesting word because it can both be a noun and a verb. We've also talked about internally that it can definitely be an adjective and potentially also an adverb. But in terms of a noun, it's basically the state of not being supported. And what's interesting is it's a unique phenomenon for Oracle customers. If you look up the word desupport in Google, really Oracle comes up pretty extensively. The other software vendors are unsupported, not desupported. And then it's also a verb in terms of desupport. Oracle will desupport a certain version of the application at some point. So enough about the terminology. Let's start talking about what desupport is and how it impacts your organization. So the Oracle has the product lifetime support model and defines 3 levels of support within the lifetime support model. The first is premier support, and that lasts for typically 5 years from the release of the product. That includes full security patches, full support from Oracle. Next is extended support. So after the 5-year period is expired, and that 5-year period can be plus or minus a year or two, can be extended. There's lots of different factors that fit into this, but these are the typical published guidelines from Oracle. Extended support is 3 years additional after the first 5 years. So really you get full security patches, full support from Oracle for a period of 8 years from the release of a product. And this is really for major versions, not minor versions. So the minor version support is a little bit different. Then finally, there's sustaining support. And so in this presentation today, when we talk about desupport, we're talking about when a product exits extended support and is now on sustaining support. And the key feature of sustaining support is there's no more bug fixes. And this includes security patches and critical patch updates. Oracle will support you lifetime support for most products as long as you pay annual support and maintain a minimum patch level. So typically for like the Oracle database, that's a terminal patch set. But there are no security patches, and this becomes a very significant security implication for your organization. So this information is mostly documented in several different documents that Oracle provides publicly. The first is the software error correction support documents. There is one for the Oracle Technology Stack products, and then also another for the Oracle E-Business Suite. I've listed the MetaLink notes here, so you can actually go on My Oracle Support and look these documents up and kind of see exactly how Oracle's guidelines work, what's supported, what's not supported. And then there's also the lifetime support document that goes through and within the lifetime support web page, they then have a link to a PDF document that has more information on the database, e-business suite, and it really goes through in gory detail talking about all the different dates. So what I'll do now is kind of walk through some of those dates and talk about why is this webinar today relevant to your organization. And what's coming up is a number of key Desupport dates. We talk to a lot of our clients in Integrigy when we're doing our assessments and talking to them on the phone. A lot of people are actually surprised by some of the upcoming Desupport dates because they say, oh no, we're under lifetime support. Oracle's going to support us forever. But they're not going to support you forever for everything. That's the key. There are no more security patches after these dates. So most people are aware Oracle 10G is fully desupported. It's in sustaining lifetime support, so you're not getting any security patches, things like that. The one that is now starting to kind of come up and bite people is 11.107 is moving to sustaining support in July 2015. For 11.2, and almost all our Integrigy clients are running 11.203. It's a very common release. I would think most organizations have a lot of databases running 11.203. The key here is 11.203 is moving to sustaining support in July 2015. So after July 2015 CPU, there is no more CPU patches or security patches for 11.203. Oracle is expecting you to upgrade. 11.204 will be the terminal patch set for the 11G R2 release. So as of January 2018, 11G R2 is moving into sustaining support as a full release. Therefore, after January 2018, there's no more security patches. Fortunately, that's a good, nice 3-year time frame from basically now. So you do have a large window of opportunity before you have to upgrade. But the key is 11.203 is now going to be moving to sustaining support, so there'll be no more CPUs after July 2015. And then finally, 12C. And this is another version that is getting people because a lot of our clients have upgraded to 12C. They went to 12.101. Oh, by the way, 12.01 will not have security patches after July 2015. So even though you may have done your 12C upgrade recently, you're now having to upgrade to 12.102 in order to apply security patches and stay current with Oracle support. So this is for the database. So there are some significant dates coming up after July 2015. So for Oracle, after July 2015, they'll only be releasing security patches really for 2 releases, 11.204 and 12.102. And one of the reasons Oracle does this is they want all their customers to be on one release of Oracle, or a very small set. When they develop security patches, typically they have to backport and develop for different versions. And historically, that's been 70 or 80 versions, because if you take each version that was supported across each platform, they have to develop a patch for each permutation there. Therefore, there's 70 or 80 patches. When they move after July 2015 to the October 2015 CPU, I think they're down to something like 15 different patches. So they've reduced the number of platforms supported, but now they're also reducing the number of versions supported for CPUs. So for Oracle, this is a huge, significant time saver. And for anyone thinking that Oracle is going to try to move away from this, this is really a boon for Oracle in terms of reducing the development effort behind the scenes, backporting of patches and things like that. So Oracle is being aggressive on support dates, and they will continue to be aggressive in the future because it's really benefiting them significantly. So for Oracle Business Suite, the CPU support works a little bit different because it's more based on a minimum baseline patch level. So in terms of extended support, in order to be getting extended support, you have to be on minimum baseline patch level. So after Premier support ends, and you want support for CPUs, for phone support, things like that, you need to have a minimum baseline patch level. And that's well documented. I've included the MetaLink support note here that it documents out how that works. For the CPU levels, a key date is coming up right now in terms of 11i. So only 11.5.10.2 is supported for critical patch updates. Those are ending after October 2015. And that date has been extended multiple times through the sustaining support exception. So today, 11i is in sustaining support, but Oracle has provided legislative HR updates and also critical patch updates through October 2015. And the legislative updates are available through 2015, or December 2015. That date most likely will not be extended at all, so after October 2015, there will be no more security patches for 11i. The one date that a lot of our clients missed was for 12.0. 12.0 moved into sustaining support as of January 2015, so the last CPU for 12.0 was January 2015. There is an exception here for advanced support contract customers of Oracle who pay a lot of money and have a dedicated support team. As of now, the April 2015 CPU is available. It's not well documented on how long advanced support contract customers will get CPUs for 12.0, but those are available. That is a fairly pricey option to enable, but if you do need CPU patches and you're still on 12.0 and you can't be upgrading to 12.1 or 12.2, that is definitely an option. Fortunately for 12.1 and 12.2, CPU support will continue for a fairly lengthy period of time. So for 12.1, you've got till October 2019, and then 12.2 is July 2021. So the key here is anyone running 12.0, 11i, CPU support is ending or has ended already. So you need to be really looking at what you should be doing in terms of upgrade or alternatives. And we'll talk about some of those alternatives during this webinar today. So what are the true security implications of Desupport? The one key implication is that there's no more security patches or critical patch updates. That's really the most significant security implication. There are some other minor ones, and we'll kind of talk about these in a little bit more detail. But Oracle, think of it this way, that Oracle is basically freezing the release. They're not doing much more. They're basically sitting there and saying, you can have this for the rest of your lifetime, you can move into sustaining support, but we're not going to do much with it. So when we're not going to do much with it, we're not going to be doing configuration updates, we're not going to be doing technology stack updates, we're not going to be updating the documentation, and if someone submits a security bug, we're not even going to really look at it. So there are a number of implications here that you really have to think about and look at that is a little bit more difficult, and it's not as easy to get those updates and think about what those updates and upgrades are because Oracle isn't providing it for 11i anymore. So if we talk about security configuration updates, Oracle over time actually makes minor improvements to the security configuration of the different products based on the way the state of security changes. I've been doing Oracle Business Suite and Oracle Database Security for 15 years, and what we looked at and cared about 15 years ago is very different than today. Hacking techniques are evolving over time. The tools that hackers use, how they can penetrate an application or a database has definitely improved dramatically over those last 15 years. Malware really wasn't much of a concern that your internal network was penetrated. Today, it's much more of a concern that someone is on your internal network, that they've been able to deposit malware on an AP clerk's desktop, and they have access to your network and things like that. Web application security has dramatically changed. The way cookies work within web security is very different, and there's many better parameters involved, and those technologies and standards have improved. So Oracle over time is making small tweaks, either through patches or security patches, to actually improve the fundamental security behind the scenes. And as soon as those regular patches and security patches go away, you're missing those changes. Oracle's not caring about those releases. In terms of the Oracle database, privilege changes over time have been pretty significant because when you get an Oracle database, there's over 25,000 public permissions. No one 15 years ago worried about those public permissions. They didn't spend a lot of time scrubbing through them. Oracle spent a lot of time scrubbing through those, and all the time we find, oh, that one package out of 25,000 privileges isn't quite right. That should probably not be granted to public. Some of those don't actually make it into critical patch updates. They're just either by version upgrades or just by patches. So when you apply it to TSU, sometimes you get some of those just minor tweaks that Oracle's providing. For the Oracle Business Suite, the web server configuration has actually changed pretty significantly over time to actually improve the security of the web server. It used to be pretty wide open, not a lot of security involved, and just over time they're just incrementally making small changes, and especially those are coming out in auto-config template patches. So when you're applying for auto-config, especially on 11i configuration template patch, that included a dozen or so pretty significant security changes to the web server configuration that never made it into a critical patch update. So these are the things that you're starting to miss as you're not on support on a supported version, that Oracle is making these changes to supported versions and not worrying about the desupported versions. Another area is technology stack upgrades. For the Oracle database, we actually have one client right now that is actually struggling with this because they've got Apex installed, that's Application Express, and the version of the database is not certified with Apex that they're running. It's a desupported database version, and they're trying to get Apex upgraded because they want some changes, but there's also a number of security fixes involved too. Since their database version is not supported anymore, the Apex version that they want to move to is not certified with that version. So you get into those little issues over time. With the database, it's not as significant as with the Oracle Business Suite. With the Oracle Business Suite, you've got a very complex technology stack. You've got the Apache server, you've got Oracle Application Server, you've got the Oracle Forms, Oracle Reports, SSL. A lot of things are running on that server that are very ancient. As you move to new versions, there's a lot of security improvements that can't be made in 11i. One of the issues overall with 11i is it's a fairly old version. It's got a lot of issues in it. As I'll show you on the next slide here, some of these versions within the 11i technology stack are ancient. The JServe, which is the Java container that a lot of the application runs in, is a 1999 version. The Oracle or the Apache server is 1.3.19. That's from basically 2002. So anyone today is running 11i, you've got 15-year-old technology that's running that has not been upgraded since. There's some security implications there in that there's been a lot of improvements to the way these components work over time. They may not necessarily be security vulnerabilities that would be patched, because Oracle does provide immediate patches for the Apache version. Even though it's an old version, they do patch if there's a significant security vulnerability. But that Apache version doesn't do certain things, like in terms of the way cookies are now secured and things that you can do to secure an application well, where the latest versions of Apache included in 12i, or 12.1.3 and 12.2, especially in 12.2, you've got a much more recent Apache version. There's a lot of better things you can do. Then also, the Java container in 12.1, 12.2 has been dramatically improved also. And you can also upgrade the server a little bit within 12.1 and 12.2. There's much better capabilities versus 11i. So there are some security implications here that the application just can't be as secure. You have to spend a lot more time working around things, spending time and effort to secure a very old technology stack that cannot be upgraded. Another area is documentation updates. For the database, this is probably not as significant of an issue, but Oracle basically then freezes the documentation. There's really no more updates or changes if there's actually something found that, well, you shouldn't be doing it that way. We occasionally find errors in the Oracle documentation in terms of, well, that's not the most secure way. Or a prime example, especially for the Oracle Business Suite, is a lot of meta-link notes that we go through. They'll tell you things like maybe change a password back to the default so you can apply a patch. Then what we'll actually see is there's nowhere in the documentation that says change that password back. We find the CTX-SYS password changes the default quite often in a lot of databases, and the DBAs swear up and down they changed that password. Oh, I changed that password. We did that when we installed it. We took care of that. What come to find out is that there was a patch along the way, and the meta-link notes clearly said change the password of CTX-SYS back to CTX-SYS so we can apply the patch. But then in the meta-link note, there was no time after that that said, oh, by the way, make sure you reset the CTX-SYS password to a secure password. So those are the type of documentation updates that are not getting done for desupported versions, because Oracle basically says, no, we're freezing the documentation, there's no more. For the EBS Business Suite, it's especially meaningful for the Secure Configuration Guide and the DMZ Configuration document. These have almost been statically frozen, even though the product is still supported. Versions have not been updated since 2011. So if you're trying to secure an 11i version of eBusiness Suite, you're basically relying on a 4 or 5-year-old document in order to secure the application, because there's just been no changes being made, even though there should be changes made to those documents. And finally, another security implication that you need to think about is security vulnerability research. So Integrigy, we do a lot of work to actually find and report to Oracle security vulnerabilities in the Oracle database, Oracle application server, and Oracle Business Suite. So we do a lot of research. We find a vulnerability, and we actually send it to Oracle to be researched. They check it. They actually fix it in the main code line. Then they backport to all the supported products. So we work very closely with the Oracle Software Security Assurance Group to do that process. Their stated policy is not to fix bugs in desupported products. And one is desupported products that if they find a bug in, let's say, Oracle Database 12c, they will never fix that bug in Oracle Database 10g. The question now becomes, what happens if someone finds a vulnerability? And this is not that common, but if someone finds a vulnerability that's only in Oracle 10g, basically Oracle's reaction is, sorry, that's an unsupported version. We have no interest in finding that, because even if we research it and figure out what's going on and how to fix it, we don't release patches for that. So it's really fixing something that will never actually get fixed. So Oracle will sometimes research, make sure it's not in the current code base, because they do get that occasionally, that someone reports a security bug to Oracle and says, oh, I found it in 10G. They do spend a little bit of time and effort just to validate that it's not in 12C, just to make sure. But sometimes there are bugs. We occasionally find bugs in older versions as we work with clients. So as an example, Oracle Business Suite 11i, there were some big changes between 11.5.3, 11.5.5, and then 11.5.7. So some of the technology stack changed between those versions, and we've actually found bugs before in 11.5.3 and 11.5.5, even though those are unsupported versions, and very few of our clients are running them. Oracle won't fix those bugs because those are unsupported versions, and those bugs were not in newer 11i versions because they were before Oracle changed it. Oracle changed it, got rid of the bug inherently in the application. But Oracle won't fix those bugs. So the key is, what would happen if someone finds a major security vulnerability in, let's say, 12.0 for Oracle Business Suite? Would they fix it? And then most likely the answer is no. So there may be bugs that are sitting out there in these applications and databases that are just not being fixed by Oracle because it's a desupported version. So you do always have to be aware of that. We don't know of any occurrences of that today, but it's definitely a possibility. So those are the major high-level issues for security implications. And now what I'm going to do is delve into the critical patch update issues. So missing security patches. So if you're running a desupported version of an Oracle product, the really major security implication is missing security patches. There's some other minor issues we just talked about, but really the security patches are the significant issue that you need to be thinking about. Hopefully it's keeping you up at night. One of the things that we do for some of our clients is they get behind on security patches, they get on these desupported versions, and they want to know what the risk is. What really is happening here? And so we actually develop these graphs, and it gives you an example of, if we're on a desupported version, what does that mean to us that we haven't been able to apply security patches? So here's an example we did, I think about 18 months ago. But in this case, they had a couple much older versions of the Oracle database. They had a 9.2.08 database, a 10.1.05, and a 10.2.04 that are now all desupported. And they weren't applying security patches, and you can see the kind of support dates are in blue here of the key events. This is the number of security vulnerabilities that are open in that database. People were thinking, oh, no, it's just a handful, we're not supported. But as time marches on, every single quarter, there's at least 3 or 4 security vulnerabilities, upwards of 10 or 12. So a typical Oracle database critical patch update for a quarter will include, on average, 8 new security vulnerabilities. And so then we analyze, based on each database, what options were installed, how many vulnerabilities were truly exploitable in each database. And as you can see, these numbers are become pretty significant. So for that 9.2.08 database that's languishing out there that no one has really touched, they can't upgrade because the application vendor is gone out of business and they're kind of stuck. There's 223 vulnerabilities in that. And this was kind of an eye-opening experience for this one client that said, we didn't realize how bad this was, and that database contains some of our significant data. Unfortunately, it's not supported. We are working to write a new application, but we need to think about some alternate security measures here. What can we do to protect this a little bit more, because we didn't realize how many different security vulnerabilities were in it. So when we start talking about and looking at the risk against the database, we look at it a couple different ways. And so first thing we do is we identify different types of users. So typically for an Oracle database, you'll have either an unauthenticated user, somebody who can connect to the database but doesn't have a login. The second way is a lowly privileged user. So if you look at a lowly privileged user, they would only have public privileges. So create session. So they can basically connect to the database, and let's say in this case they have no privileges. Then you have a moderately privileged user, so they have some privileges. They can probably read some data here and there. And these may be ad hoc named users, an ad hoc generic user account, like a read-only account that is distributed out throughout the organization. Or it can be service accounts, interface accounts, and things like that. And then finally, there's a highly privileged user, and that's somebody with DBA privileges. So when we think of risk to an Oracle database, we look at it based on one of these four types of users. What can they potentially exploit, and what can they do? For an Oracle database, a lowly privileged user, someone with only create session, is a very high risk if you're not applying Oracle security patches. Because many times Oracle security patches are in public packages, and as long as you can connect to the database, you can take over the entire database. The really nice thing about Oracle databases is, except for 2 vulnerabilities in the last 8 years, it's very difficult to attack or take over a database if you don't have a login. So if I can just connect to the listener with an IP address and port, but I don't actually have a database login, it's very difficult to near impossible to take over that database. But once I have a login, even if it has no privileges, I can basically take over the databases within a couple minutes if you're not applying security patches. So the risk is here in terms of if you can connect to the database, that's where the risk is. If I just have it out on the network and people can look at it and scan it, there's not a lot of risk there. But I do need to make sure I protect myself that you have to have a login. So you have to make sure you don't have default passwords and things like that. So here's an example that we did for another client that they had an 11202 database. Again, you cannot apply security patches. And so we looked through the number of security bugs and then ranked the security bugs against the type of users and the risk for the organization. So this actually took, and I think this is about 4 or 5 CPUs that weren't applied. So first, for unauthenticated users, there was 9 security bugs. 7 of those were denial of service potential attacks. And so that means I can probably bring down the database listener, but the database stays up. So I really can't steal any data. I can just cause some havoc and confusion in the organization. I can kind of make the DBA's day or a really bad day, but I really can't steal anything. Only one of those bugs was an authentication issue, and we're going to have a webinar on June 8th that I'm actually going to demonstrate on how that authentication bug works, and basically I can steal credentials to the database if I can do a few things. So there's only one bug that was really an issue, and that was actually pretty easy to fix without a patch. But as you can see, for the lowly privileged user, there were 7 different bugs in this one database that only required public privileges to take over the entire database. So they had an option of 7 different bugs. So if I can just connect to the database with any account with only create session privileges, I can easily take over the database and basically get sys privileges. I can basically either read all data, write all data, I can do whatever I want. And then there's a number of moderate privileges. So typically for the moderate privileged user, let's say this is maybe an interface account and one of the developers knows the password to the interface account and connect. It has some privileges in terms of like create procedure. I can basically then take over the database with 6 different vulnerabilities. And then what's always interesting is Oracle does fix a lot of highly privileged user vulnerabilities. So basically this assumes that I already have DBA privileges, but now I can actually do something more. At Integrigy, we tend to discount these pretty quickly unless you're running database vault. The only time these really come to play is if I'm running something like database vault where I'm trying to take the DBAs and prevent them from reading data, certain data tables, things like that. So typically the DBA has full permissions, but if you're running database vault, that's the one way that can potentially limit a DBA from reading everything in the database. There's 7 vulnerabilities there. But the key here is the lowly privileged user can take over the entire database. That's a huge implication. And if you can't apply security patches because you're desupported, every single quarter there's going to be more and more of these. And usually there's at least 1 or 2 per CPU that only requires public privileges. So this is really the key security implication for an Oracle database when you're not applying CPUs due to desupport. So we always like to discuss the problem and then actually give you some concrete solutions versus just letting you hang. So really, if you're desupported and you're not applying CPUs, what are some of the things you should be doing? And these also are effective if you're still supported, but you're just not applying CPUs. So really, our #1 recommendation for every Oracle database is really to limit direct database access. So if I can't connect to a database, it becomes very hard for me to hack it. If I can't connect and log in, it becomes extremely difficult for me to hack it. So the first thing to do is really try to limit that direct database access. The second is always make sure that there's no default passwords. We always do during our security assessments, looking very closely at default passwords. I think we have a 92% success rate of finding at least one default password in every Oracle database we look at. Very seldom do we not find any default passwords, and it's a very small minority, only like 8% of databases we assess do we not find a default password. So usually there's at least one or two, if not more. #3, use only named accounts. So if you can try to limit who's accessing, try to avoid all these generic read-only accounts that are just distributed willy-nilly with an organization. I can't tell you for eBusiness Suite how many times we see apps read-only as an account that has significant read privileges. Remember, any account that connects to the database can take it over. For moderately privileged users, be very careful on limiting privileges. There's actually a fairly serious security vulnerability that's not really fixed if you grant somebody out create any index privilege. If you grant somebody out create any index privilege, and we see that more often than not, like, oh, how bad could create any index privilege be? Well, creating any index system privilege allows someone to take over the entire database. Even if you just have create session and create any index, I can create a function-based index and basically execute code as a sys user. And then finally, if you need to protect against highly privileged users, you need to be looking at using Database Vault, potentially an external auditing solution to monitor what the DBAs are doing. Be very careful about how DBAs access the operating system, make sure they're not SSHing in as the Oracle account and things like that. So there are some solutions here that work fairly effectively. The key is always limiting direct database access. And for direct database access, it's very easy for me to sit here and say, oh yeah, just limit direct database access. Typically when we do our security assessments, we see hundreds of people directly connecting to databases. And that may be interfaces, service accounts, Discover, OBIE, people using SQL Developer, super users going in, people using SQL Plus. So most large production databases have lots of connectivity, lots of people connecting. It's very difficult to limit direct database access, but anything you can do to do that is very beneficial. First is we always try to recommend firewall off the data center. So put in front of the data center a firewall so people in the organizations aren't necessarily able to connect to the database directly. That really just knocks down a lot of the noise, because then I don't have as much difficulty about, well, all the interfaces, everything going on within the data center, but I've actually reduced my risk because I've got all those ad hoc people off. It doesn't dramatically reduce the risk, but I've cut out a lot of the noise, a lot of the potential problems. And then if the DBAs need to connect, you can set up a bastion host that they have to go through, like a Citrix server to actually connect. I take the ad hoc users and I try to force them through a reporting tool like OBIE versus having them directly connect and enter any ad hoc query via SQL Developer. A little bit harder way, but if you do have a smaller database that only has maybe a couple application servers connecting a very limited set of connections, you can use the SQLnet valid node checking. That's free. That's easy to implement. The DBA can do it. They just have to basically get a set of IP addresses. Unfortunately, most databases it doesn't work with because the list of IP addresses is, one, dynamic if you're running DHCP and you've got clients connecting, and two, it can become a very long list, and there's no wildcarding. There's nothing you can do in there it's just IP address or host name one by one, and you have to include each of them. And if that list changes, you have to go in and add a new one. Oracle does include with Enterprise Edition of the Oracle Database another product called Oracle Connection Manager. So you can use Oracle Connection Manager, and that gives you a little bit more capabilities to use IP addresses and ranges and things. And finally, Oracle has another product called Oracle Database Firewall that you can actually then limit access with a set of rules, and that's fairly effective, but it does act as a proxy, and everything has to funnel through the Oracle Database Firewall appliance, and that becomes a separate server and a separate point of fault potential failure in the organization. So, but there are different options. You just have to look at what would work best for your organization. So that was looking at the database. What's the risk and what are the issues with not applying security patches? What are some of the solutions? And now we'll kind of touch base on the Oracle Business Suite, kind of along the same lines. The risks and threats in Oracle Business Suite environment are a little bit different because now we're talking mostly about the application user. So can someone connect either externally, so you may be running iStore, iSupplier, iRecruitment, iSupport, externally on the internet. It's a very different risk profile with those type of users versus internal users. Our assumption is your internal network has always been compromised, so there are active hackers potentially on your internal network. Again, I'm giving a very detailed presentation that discusses that on June 8th, a very similar webinar, same time, on June 8th, that we'll discuss and we'll actually show you how people can exploit an Oracle database, assuming that they've been able to penetrate your internal network using malware or something else. And that's how most customers like Target, Anthem, those type of organizations were penetrated. Hackers were able to plant malware on their network and get into their network, and then they start rummaging around looking for databases and things like that. But for the Oracle Business Suite, it's a very different risk profile if you're running externally, running like iStore, because that's wide open on the internet. People can connect to it unless you're very careful about that configuration and apply security patches or try to mitigate those security patches. That's most likely where your vulnerability and risk is going to be. The internal, yes, there's always still potential risk there. So if we talk about it, again, the risk here is on the external environment. That's where you really need to put your resources and effort and concern, because it's on the internet. If someone can find a vulnerability in Oracle Business Suite, either patched or unpatched, they can potentially get in. And remember, this runs as the apps user. So anyone connecting to the external application servers, when they do something, that SQL goes to the Oracle database as the apps user, so they have access to all data. There's no internal firewall. So once I'm able to penetrate the external application server, I can do anything I want on the database level. So we showed the graph before for the Oracle database, a very similar idea that we had a couple clients that had older environments, and they were looking to do, okay, what can we do? How many security vulnerabilities are actually in our environment since we haven't patched at a certain date? So like for an 11.5.9 environment, if you're not patching, you potentially have hundreds of vulnerabilities. That number 107, that's from 2013, so that's probably actually up to maybe 150 by now. So these numbers creep up very quickly. Even if you're not patching, and we've got a number of our clients that are not on the minimum baseline for 11.5.10.2. They just aren't able to apply all those patches, and so you have 50, 60, 70 vulnerabilities open today in 11.5.10 environment if you haven't applied the minimum baseline patches and not up to date. So these numbers are pretty significant, and a lot of these vulnerabilities are fairly serious. Again, another risk mapping here that now we map out based on a specific security vulnerability, and these were from a point in time, how many of these are high risk and where is really the risk in environment. And very different for Oracle Business Suite than the Oracle database. In the Oracle Business Suite, it's the unauthenticated users become much more the higher risk, because I can connect to the web server. Even if I'm not authenticated, Oracle Business Suite out of the box is 25,000 web pages. And unless you're specifically limiting those somehow, even if you're not running Oracle Student System, everyone on the call here is running Oracle Student System. The web pages are installed. If you're running an Oracle Business Suite environment and you're running Oracle Student System, you may not have configured it, licensed it, or anything else, but those web pages are still vulnerable. So if there's a security vulnerability in like Oracle Student System, CRM, manufacturing, modules that you're not running, they're there and they're potentially exploitable. And they're potentially exploitable by an unauthenticated user. In this case, when we looked at this client environment, they were running 21 vulnerabilities, 17 of which were high risk. So anyone could potentially gain significant advantage over the application server with any of those vulnerabilities. Authenticated users had many less vulnerabilities. It was really the unauthenticated users are a big issue in Oracle Business Suite. The April CPU just came out for Oracle Business Suite. There was 4 vulnerabilities. 3 were unauthenticated issues. So basically, if I can connect to the web application server, I can potentially exploit, take over, or gain some advantage, like reading data that I shouldn't have access to. So very significant risk level for Oracle Business Suite on unauthenticated users. So what are some of the solutions here? Again, the risk is unauthenticated users, and so you do have to be very careful on a DMZ environment that Oracle's got a very specific set of recommendations to make. And this is not related to security patches. This is just basically limiting that access to those 25,000 web pages. And so Oracle's got a MetaLink note, and I'll show it in a second, on how to limit access to your external environment. This was such a risk, and before Oracle implemented their URL firewall, our team at Integrigy actually developed a product called AppDefend that takes the URL firewall to a much larger extent and blocks unknown vulnerabilities and does virtual patching for the Business Suite environment. So if you're looking to implement the URL firewall, I'd also recommend you potentially look at Integrigy's AppDefend because it can provide much more higher level protection than the URL firewall does. And then finally, limit privilege responsibilities as much as possible, even for authenticated users. Some of the vulnerabilities are in like sysadmin, so I can actually take sysadmin responsibility. If I can get in there, I can actually potentially start executing things as the apps user very easily if I have sysadmin privileges against the database. So sysadmin should be at least somewhat limited. It should be system administration only, but I can read all data and things like that. So you do have to be very careful in the Business Suite in terms of internal privileges and those type of things. So for those of you running on the internet with products like iStore and iSupport, iRecruitment, iSupplier, you do have to be careful you've got the DMZ configuration done appropriately. And these are the MetaLink notes. This will block a lot of pages and hopefully block many of those security vulnerabilities, but if there's security vulnerabilities in pages that the DMZ configuration allows, which is in some of the AOL SMB pages, this is not a complete solution. It works by just basically blocking pages, and so as you can see here, this is the implementation. The boxes in red show you what's been implemented if you do the DMZ configuration right. And it's reducing the number of web pages available, but there's still a number of web pages out there available. So OA framework, and this is an example for like iSupplier, I went from 11,000 OA framework pages down to 250. I went from 8,000 Java server pages down to 90, but those 90 and 250 pages may still have a security vulnerability in them. And so this doesn't prevent that type of attack. One option against that would be we have our product AppDefend, that's for R12. We actually do virtual patching. So whenever an Oracle security vulnerability comes out, we actually virtually patch and provide a rule to block that specific web vulnerability. It may be in a page, it may be in a parameter, and we have the ability to block that. So that was kind of a quick overview of the security implications due to Oracle Desupport. So we kind of walked through both the Oracle database and Oracle Business Suite and provided both kind of what the risks are, what the issues are, and hopefully some solutions that you can take back and implement. Now I'll turn it over to Mike and see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Steve. We do have a few questions here. First question, does a third-party support company provide any benefits in this area?
That's an interesting question. Third-party support providers, there is actually one that we know of that we have some familiarity with, and it's Remedy Street. Remedy Street, if you move off of Oracle support, will provide you support. They do actually have a security team that does spend time thinking about this because their customers are naturally desupported, so they actually have to think about solutions for their customers on how to do this. So it's not complete, but they do provide some benefit if you're especially on a desupported version, because Oracle's not going to help you at all. They're actually trying. I don't know how successful that is, but they are actually spending some effort in trying to protect against some of the security vulnerabilities.
Thank you. Next question. I have 11.5.10.2 behind a corporate firewall. What's the real risk to the organization?
Yeah, so that's always an interesting question that we get. And well, we have a corporate firewall, so we're protected. No one can get into our Oracle Business Suite environment. So there's still two risk points there. One is there may be someone within your organization that wants to attack your Oracle Business Suite environment and take credit cards. We were involved in one case where an AP clerk had a boyfriend who was looking to make some quick money and got her to actually go in, and she was an internal AP clerk and was able to do a few things and get into the database directly and actually steal Social Security numbers and some credit card information and sell those off. And they sold those off, I think, for like $50 each. And then I think they made like $10,000 and $20,000, and they were eventually caught. But that's basically internal, there is risk also. You do always have to be aware of that. And then the second piece is most hacks now happen in organizations. So when you see the headlines, that organization was attacked from internally on their own network. So that someone was able to do a phishing attack or somehow plant malware on someone's machine. And this is exactly how Target, Anthem, and some of the major breaches, Home Depot also, all happened was they get attacked, you get malware planted on one machine. You only need one person. You don't need thousands of people to be stupid and open up a phishing attack email. You just need one person, and then they get a foothold into your network, and then they're able to go find your Oracle databases, your Oracle Business Suite environment, and actually then attack and steal data. Again, I just gave a presentation at the Collaborate conference on this, and we'll be doing a replay of that on June 8th. And we talk about, okay, assuming that someone's penetrating your internal network, how can they get into your databases? What's the process of that? And we'll actually go through step by step and actually show you how someone can attack your databases internally on your own network, and then how to detect and prevent that. It's much easier than you think it is.
All right, thank you, Steve. I'm going to combine a few different questions here because they're all kind of asking the same question with regard to Oracle moving the desupport dates. So the first question was with regard to Oracle extending the 11.203 support date, and another question was with regard to the 11.5.10 date. Oracle has moved these once. Your opinion as to whether or not they will move again.
Yeah, so let's bring up the database versions. We are pretty confident that Oracle will not move the 11.203 support date, primarily because 11.204 is available. That's the terminal patch set. Oracle would like people to move to that. So very high confidence that July 2015 is the last CPU for 11.203. I don't see any way that Oracle is going to move that. It's not realistic. They want you to move to 11.204. And in Oracle's opinion, applying a patch set is not a big deal. For many organizations, it is a big deal because it's do a lot of testing and things like that. But for Oracle's opinion, to move from 11.203 to 11.204 is not a big deal. And I don't think there's going to be enough customer backlash against Oracle to do that. The second part of the question is related to 11.5.10, that these support dates have moved dramatically out. And this is, I think, the second or third year of sustaining support now, that these have really been moved out. Again, Oracle has moved them multiple times. It's going to come to an end at some point, and I think Oracle's probably going to start looking at taking a stake in the sand here. If it does move out, it would probably move to January 2016, but not much more. The key issue here is for Oracle is the legislative NHR updates. 2015 is a specific date because you're covered for HR through calendar year 2015. If they extend this date, they have to extend it to calendar year 2016. So I think that's the reason it would not get extended, because it's not really the critical patch updates that's the issue. It's the legislative and HR updates that have to be made every year. And if Oracle extends this critical patch update, they might as well extend those dates. And that's much more of a painful process than actually doing the CPU patches. So in our opinion, I think this is 2015 will stick for the end of true sustaining support and those exceptions that Oracle's made.
Thank you, Steve. While you're moving around in the slides here, if you could move back to the graph of vulnerabilities for the database. There's a question with regard to clarifying one point as far as it shows, the graph here is showing the vulnerabilities since the start of extended support. Given that CPU patches are still available during extended support, would not the graph be drawn a little differently? So if you could just restate the premise of this slide, I think is the question.
Yeah, and this was from a client that was moving into different dates, and they were not looking, because remember, extended support has an additional fee, and they were looking at the expense related to if they did or did not do extended support. So when a patch, you can download CPU patches for extended support, but you do have to pay an additional fee for that capability. So it's not a free period of extended support. You do have to pay a free fee for that. Oftentimes it is waived In these database versions, that was not waived. So the customer was actually looking to do a cost-benefit analysis, and that's why extended support was kind of this key milestone here.
All right, thank you. Another question. How truly effective are the recommendations you're making compared to just applying the CPU?
It's kind of a double-edged sword because even if you're applying CPU patches, you're not typically applying them immediately. So we always like to look at both as the most effective solution. So if you're limiting database access and applying CPUs, that's the best case scenario. If you actually limited all database access and really the only time that there's database access was through an application server or a very well-controlled environment, we have customers that we've actually sat down and talked to, and I wouldn't say we signed off on, but we gave a nod and said, this is so well controlled of an environment, you probably don't have to apply CPU patches. And these were some 7x24 databases that were very mission critical, and they really didn't even want people in them because a poorly written ad hoc query would cause a performance issue. And it was so well controlled that it was so difficult for somebody to get in. Again, you need database access in order to exploit it, that we said, really, there's no reason for you to be applying CPU patches because no one can exploit them. So they can be very effective controls if you limit database access. We think our App Defend solution for eBusiness Suite is actually a fairly effective solution. Again, we're only protecting against web vulnerabilities, and that if you have a forms vulnerability, and there's some vulnerabilities that if you're in the forms or the DBA is in, are potentially exploitable with direct database access, but most of the risk around the eBusiness Suite is web vulnerability. So App Defend is a pretty effective solution because if you can't get to the web page, you can't exploit the vulnerability. It's virtually patched at that point. So they can be just as effective. Our recommendation is to do both. Try to limit database access, apply some security layers, but also apply the security patches. But if you're in a desupported environment, you can be somewhat effective. And it's really a case-by-case scenario, so you just have to evaluate your risk and what you're trying to protect against and how many people are accessing it and things like that. But I wouldn't be discounting it immediately. I would say, yeah, take a look at it, see what you can do.
All right, one last question here I think we have time for. If anything, it might be more of a clarification here with regard to EBS 12.2.2 and the note in the January CPU that CPU patches for Oracle Release 12.2.2 are only available by request on a case-by-case basis. So that, again, might just be a point of clarification, or if you have any...
yeah, Oracle is kind of with the 12.2 CPU patches because they've been moving people along on the upgrades there, and I just don't think there's that many customers running 12.2 that they haven't necessarily needed to develop some of those patches, because if you actually look at the download statistics on some of the 12.2 patches, the numbers are exceptionally low. So I don't know if people aren't even applying them or there's just not that many customers. But whenever you download a patch from Oracle on My Oracle Support, you can actually see the number of people who downloaded it. And we started looking at those numbers. Some of those for 12.2 are very, very low. And we see 12.1 is dramatically, it's like 20 times bigger numbers than the 12.2 numbers. And the 11.9 numbers are also dramatically dropping now. So it's very clear that people are upgrading, but 12.1 really seems to be the sweet spot of the release. 12.2.2 and 12.2.1, I don't think many people are running on today. Okay.
Well, that is it for the questions that have come in during the webinar here, Steve. So thank you.
Okay. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Again, our next webinar will be June 8th and talking about cybersecurity attacks against Oracle databases. Thank you very much, and everyone have a great day.